Hi everyone, I'm Roberta Thorson, and my husband Steve and I live at Arena, North Dakota, and Arena is about 8 miles east of Wing and about 18 miles north of Driscoll. And we also have Arena Lake right beside us. So another thing about Arena is that you may not be aware, but it's a ghost town. And if you go on YouTube, you can YouTube Arena, North Dakota. It's a ghost town. We farm on a certified organic grain and vegetable farm. We both graduated from NDSU. After graduation, Steve went into the Air Force. We were at Minot Air Force Base for about 6 years. And then Steve got out of the Air Force and became a Delta airline pilot. And we lived in Houston for about 8 years. I'm telling you about our history so you kind of understand where we've come from and where we've landed. So Steve flew for Delta Airlines for about 20 years, and then the company was going bankrupt. So he got out, and he'd always dreamed of a farm. They say you can't take the farm boy out of the farm, and that was his dream. And so we moved to North Dakota in 1986 with our 5 children, and we had an old farmhouse and kind of still live there. We fixed on it a lot and still have lots of fixing to do. Steve continued to commute to the airlines. He flew many bases around the country, and eventually, I guess about the last half of his career, he flew international. But he would come home and we would do the garden. We didn't farm at that time. I think we started in about 2008 farming with our organic farm. How did we get to growing a big garden and selling vegetables? Steve had an aunt and uncle who lived at Wilton in the summers. They were retired teachers from Illinois, and they moved back to his aunt's farm at Wilton, and they still have that farm. It's just a little bit south of Wilton. And anyway, they had had a lot of experience with DeKalb, Illinois, the corn country, and had become familiar with farmers markets there. So when they came to North Dakota, they started or joined the Bismarck Farmers Market. And when we moved back, they encouraged us to try it out. So we went to the market one day and we checked it out, went around to all the vendors and maybe bought a few things. And we've always gardened. We had a garden in Minot when we were in the Air Force, or Steve was in the Air Force, and not so much in Texas. We didn't have much of a spot there, but we had blackberries in the backyard. And anyway, so we decided to join the Bismarck Farmers Market, and we've been members there for a long, long time. I think it's been close to 30 years. We thought it was a good thing for our family. We didn't want our kids to be couch potatoes, and so they joined in, helping with the garden. Eventually, they earned money. They got a crop. My 2 oldest boys bought their first car with their potato money. So that was kind of exciting. And we tried to make it fair. My daughter didn't care much for the garden, but she tried to keep the house clean. She got pretty upset with us, dragging dirt in all the time. But anyway, she tried. So gardening is one of the most popular hobbies there is. And I call it my summer exercise program because there's lots of bending, stretching, lifting, and it's kind of exciting time for me. And by spring, I realized that I've really gotten out of shape, so I'm excited to go again. Our farm our grain and farm vegetables are certified by ICS, which is out of Medina. That's International Certification Service, and it's a lot of paperwork involved, but we feel it's worth it to be organic, providing a healthy crop for our consumers. We use primarily black plastic mulch for weed suppression, and I'm going to go into some of these pictures so that you'll understand a little better how we do it. We start our vegetables in early spring on our porch and then move them out to a greenhouse. And I do buy a few things, but mostly I start what we grow. We started on a small scale, pretty much with a hoe and a spade. And our 5 kids, I can still see my youngest son out there digging those potatoes with that spade. But we have a little more mechanized system right now. And I have a picture of the kids up here with the archaic potato digger. And so you'll be able to come up and see that after a while. We farm about 1,000 acres, and our garden is somewhere over 10 acres. We used to do a lot of corn, but with our 5 kids gone, it's kind of hard, and organically it's pretty hard to grow corn without a lot of labor. You got to keep those weeds down, and you can do them between the rows, but in the rows the weeds still grow, and you almost have to be out there with a hoe getting those weeds out. I can go into what we grow. It's pretty much everything except corn. I don't do broccoli and I don't do cauliflower anymore. It's just too hard to keep up with the worms. And being organic, I have a hard time just with the cabbage. So I don't do much with raceous vegetables. So I'm going to go through some of these pictures here so you understand a little bit how our system works. You'll be able to come up and look at these pictures. This is me when we first started back in the 80s. My first little table was a card table at the Bismarck Farmers Market. That was when we were at the old Northbrook Shopping Center. We do plastic mulch. This is a picture. It's kind of small. I'm sorry I didn't have a better picture, but it shows basically how we put down the drip line and the black plastic. Steve had the machine that we use at Arena Welding. So ours is a homemade, but it works very well. Ours has a seat on the back, and usually that's the person that has to watch the plastic, make sure that the dirt is covering the plastic and that everything's moving well and no hiccups. And the dirt just covers the black plastic, and it's ready for planting. We have the drip irrigation tape underneath. The tape goes right under the plastic, and we hook that up to a 2-inch hose. We cut a hole in it. We put this little device in, and it tightens up against the hose, and then we join the drip tape and tighten it up, and the water goes through. Now this is an 8-inch drip. We've used 12 in the past, but I kind of like the 8-inch. It spreads out pretty good. So this is what we've gone to in the last few years. This is our potato digger. This was my kids when they were a lot younger. You might recognize one of these guys in here. He's here today. This is the black plastic. There's different mills that you can use. I'm not sure what this one is, Steve. What is it?
That's probably about 1 mil.
1 mil?
It
So
comes in rolls. We use 4-foot wide rolls.
Yeah. 4 foot by,
Well, we can get 4,000 foot rolls as well. We
Yeah.
use 4,000 feet. It's not too expensive. It's maybe $120 for a 4,000-foot roll by 4 foot wide.
This is a picture I put up here. It was given to me by a friend. She was kind of an artist, and it's called the El Migrant. And sometimes I feel like that, but I guess I love it, so I'm not really complaining, but it's kind of a special picture to me, mostly because she gave it to me. This is a picture of me and a couple of my helpers. Help is always a big problem for me. Right now I have my granddaughter who's off to camps off and on during the summer, and I have a high school graduate helping me also, so we work together most of the days. And we're picking cabbage here. You'll see that we got grass right up to the cabbage. We call that our cover crop. We don't have time to actually put down cover crop, but so this is kind of our answer. We do tilling. I don't know if Jay's around here. I didn't know if I wanted him to hear that, but we pretty much have to till. And this is a picture of low tunnels that we used to do a lot of, and that's really great for early spring. It protects from the wind, which we live on the windiest hill in Burleigh County, so there's another thing I'm going to show you that why we do what we do. This is the black plastic. It's got tomatoes in it. That's all done by hand. We do have a transplanter that we got from McGinnis's a few years ago, and we've used it a couple times. Not this year yet, but we may still use it. This is me picking beans. We do kind of a wide bed, usually 3 to 4 rows side by side. This is our tractor and our tiller. We let the weeds grow up beside the, or in between, I should say, move back a little bit.
You can see it on the middle picture, the one you were just looking at. The weeds.
Yeah, we have this is our protection for the crop. This is where we planted the year before. We let the weeds grow up, and eventually, when the plants are fairly well established, we mow it down, and then the next year we'll till it in. So it's kind of a mulch, you'd say. This is cucumbers. There's more cucumbers down here. This is me and the girls last year, my helpers. I had, once school starts, then I'm kind of on my own, but we do have a young man that helps us quite a bit, and he's really good help. This is my granddaughter. This is Chad's daughter, Jordan. She's quite an athlete, and anyway, she helps me during the summer. This was last year. We pick the cucumbers in the morning, we wash them, and then we bag them up, and this is our bagging process. We were in the shade here in front of the house. This is the market. I have a wonderful partner, Diane Schmidt. We're quite a pair. A lot of people think we're sisters, but we're not. But we have a good time and really enjoy what we do. We have a CSA. This is my partners here. Is me, Sue Balcom, and Diane Schmidt. Diane does a lot of canning. She does pies, and she has gardens of her own too. And Sue does a lot of bread. She makes the best sourdough I've ever tasted. And she does canning and vegetables as well. She has a high tunnel. And so I think she had her high tunnel last year too. So this is a little bit about our CSA. This is Steve and I went late in the fall with our fall products. We didn't used to do fall products, pumpkins and squash, but we decided it'd be kind of fun to grow some pumpkins. So that puts us late into the fall, usually till Halloween. These are our melons. We had a great year with melons last year. We had the heat and moisture that we needed. There's been some years where we didn't have the heat, and melons like heat. So we grow pretty much crimson sweet and sangria. They are not seedless. I try seedless all the time. They're not a very hardy plant, and I'm still trying. I have a few every year, but not very many. And this is another picture at the market. It's a good way that you can get kids involved. And those were, that's my grandson there and his cousin. And so they helped at the market. And the tomatoes, I forgot to mention that we grow only determinate. Is everyone familiar with determinate and indeterminate? Indeterminate just keeps growing, growing, growing. Well, I don't have time to stake tomatoes, so I grow only determinate, and that, you know, whenever you look at your variety, it'll tell you whether it's indeterminate or determinate. Any questions on that? Okay. I was going to show you when we started. This is my 5 kids. I'll put this up here so you can see it, but this was, they don't look like they're suffering too much. I think they were having a lot of fun. They washed the potatoes before and put them in this was our first tractor we bought, a little John Deere 318. It was a gem. And it kind of went by the wayside for a few years, but we did find a used one this year, and so I'm kind of excited about that. And this is me in our first garden. We had it just behind the house. My kids came out with their horses to visit me picking beans. So it's a great family activity, I think. I look forward to it every year. So now I'm going to open it up to questions. Any questions? Yes?
Have you ever tried to grow anything like several times and it just doesn't work?
Yeah.
What is it? What stuff just you can't?
Well, there's certain varieties. We have certain varieties that we kind of like. Like I mentioned, the determinate tomatoes work for us. I think it depends a lot on your soil. Like we have pretty light soil, so like I don't do broccoli in North Dakota heat. I don't do a lot of cool crops, I should say, because I get to the market probably mid-July, and so a lot of those early crops I don't do anymore.
What's your biggest, most important crop?
Well, we used to have the big 4. The big 4, this is Steve's determination, was cucumbers, tomatoes, potatoes, and corn. And like I said, it's just kind of gotten so it's too hard for us, with the 2 of us, to grow corn. But I'll tell you what, if anyone is interested in marketing, selling corn, there is very few vendors. $7 a dozen is pretty much the going rate. It's a lot of work, but there's a big demand, and the demand is not being met by any of the markets. Yes?
You said that you grow cabbage.
Yep.
How do you keep the worms out of the cabbage if you do?
Well, we're organic, so we use mostly dipel or thurgicide, and there are certain powders offhand, I'm not sure what they are, but those are the 2 main ones, and we spray. We have to. You can use a remake cover and do it like the hoops that we have there. They have low hoops too that you can use. These were, I think Steve made most of these. We haven't used them in a few years, but I think he made most of those. And that was vented plastic, by the way, too, so the air could get in, and it will let some insects in. But
The picture there in the middle with the roll cover, that really works good if you want to get stuff in early. Maybe it'll get you past the frost even. We had a couple of years where the frost wiped us out, so we don't put stuff in that early anymore. We start all the plants, so if you get them out there and then it freezes, basically you've lost your whole year. So we had 2 years in a row we pretty much had to start from scratch. But with the row cover, it protects from the wind and the hard rains and stuff like that early in the spring. And those plants will just grow onto there like a hedge. And then you take it off, you know, maybe in first part of June or middle of June, and you really got a nice plant. There's been spots that we didn't have the cover on. We maybe ran out and we left the last 10 feet off. And that last 10 feet would be like nothing there. Those plants just got wiped out by the elements. But underneath that row cover, it'd be just like a hedge under there when you pull it off. We don't plant that early anymore, so we don't really need the advantage of the protection, and especially we let the weeds grow up alongside and protect the, you know, the plants. You can see in there where the plants got weeds on each side, so it's almost like a tunnel. But we don't, I would recommend if you're gonna go out there early, you should have some kind of protection. You'd be amazed at how much difference that makes in what you have, especially in North Dakota with cold winds and sometimes you get hard rains and things like that.
They have a remade fabric that you can use also, and you wouldn't really necessarily have to use hoops with that. You could just lay it over your plants if they're sturdy plants. And that's kind of porous, kind of a fabric-like. Any other questions? Yes?
What's your source of water?
Oh, yes. We have a well, and we have hookups to the hose here, and it takes it out to the garden. And it's surprising how far you can take this and still get a good supply of water to your plants. But yeah, we have a well. In years past, we used to irrigate overhead. We don't do that anymore. It's just not convenient for us.